So, good afternoon, ladies and gents, and welcome back to the course. Last week, if you remember, we were talking about new media history, and we differentiated between the agricultural, the industrial, and then the post-industrial, information societies. And I'm not sure if you remember, but we actually said that because that class was rather historical and conceptual and rather, dry, this week we would be having more fun. Well, I was lying. It's not happening. This is still going to be just as boring as last week's. We are still having some history and conceptualization to do. And that was not really planned. I'm so sorry about it. I've forgotten about a material I really wanted to teach you because it's useful, but boring. We can still be having fun, though, by clicking on somebody else's video on YouTube. But please stick with me, because that's the material. And I don't know why I'm pretending that the materials of my courses are independent of my choices as a professor. But still, let's stick with me. Thank you. So, information society, ladies and gents. Very importantly, we made a difference. We're living in an information society, but not every country belongs to that society still. We do differentiate between certain worlds as well. You might have heard of this expression, first world, second world, third world, and the fourth one is going to be called a fourth world as well, but that's not a real world. That's going to be rather tribal societies. But let's just jump right into whom we call first world countries, and what we mean by these, and when certain countries actually entered this kind of information sphere or information society sphere. I promise you, literally, I know you don't trust me anymore, but next week I will pay very much attention to it, that we will speak about non-historical, non-conceptual things. I just need to kind of embed this whole thing for you, and then that's it, I promise you. Okay, first world countries. I'm not going to surprise you by the fact, ladies and gents, that these are the capitalist industrial countries, roughly, the block of the Western European countries, America, Japan, Australia, which were aligned with the United States in the Second World War. These are the ones that we call the capitalist first world countries, with more or less common political and economic interests, and with more or less being leaders of these sectors, economy, policy, everything really. So North America, Western Europe, and the rest of these, Japan, Australia, these countries are going to be called the first world countries. I'm not sure if there is anybody from these countries, these first world ones as well. I'm assuming that majority of our students, maybe Western Europe, but I don't think we've got anybody from Japan, Australia, and North America. But let's see the second world ones, because I'm kind of sure that we do have more people from that one, including, of course, Hungary, which will belong to a second world, which is going to inline the formal communist, socialist, industrial spheres, formerly Eastern Bloc, run by or oppressed by the Soviet Union, really. So today, second world countries are going to be Russia, Eastern Europe, for example, Poland, Czech Republic, Hungary as well, Romania as well, Belarusia, all these former Soviet states. Then the Turk states as well, the Eastern countries, Kazakhstan, for example, Kyrgyzstan, all the rest of them, as well as China, second world, very much second world. These are the ones that you will see that historically they entered to become an information society slightly later. We are an information society, all of us, but we entered later, right after, the first world ones. Third world countries, ladies and gents. Today, we're often calling them these developing countries, like Africa, Asia, Latin America, and plus the communist North Korea. And these countries are not really information societies, to be honest with you. So they don't really have a very good coverage. They don't really have very good means. They don't really have the internet everywhere, of course. So they will be called a third world country because they're not run necessarily on or by information. That's not the main source of capital in these countries. It's not the most important thing. They're struggling, majority of these places are struggling for drinking water, land, food, good supplies as well. So in here, internet is going to be the last thing, on the list of importance. So these are the third world countries. Fourth world countries, these are not really countries. These are the extensions of the third world model. And these are rather like subpopulations, socially excluded from global society, or hunter-gatherer, nomadic, pastoral, oh, I'm not sure about the stress, sorry, farming societies with some sort of an industrial form. But these are rather these hunter-gatherer, very much cut off from civilization kind of societies, which are also sometimes real nations as well, tribes, but sometimes these can be social movements as well. Fourth world are going to be the Amish, for example, who are cutting themselves off and they live in a very closed society, as well as some reactive movements of religious fundamentalism, those religious groups which are very traditional, and they will say that changelessness is a virtue, and that the internet and new media is like the creation of the devil, so they don't really want to know about it. So there are these tribes as well. So the fourth world is not really a world, sometimes not even a country or a nation. These are sometimes smaller societies that maybe deliberately cut themselves off as well. I'm not sure if you can name any more groups like this who are fourth world, don't run on the basis of the internet, new media, information. They just like to be cut off from the mainstream civilization to have a life that they desire, practically. Okay, good. We've got a bunch of movements who don't care about networks. Okay, we don't really care about this one. Yes, now, this is important. Alvin Toffler, I keep mentioning the name of him, and John Nesbitt as well. They were saying that the United States was entering the information society really early, which was in the late 1950s, early 1960s. This was the time that they started functioning on the basis of information and internet. The internet started to be not only for military purposes, they started using it for civilian purposes as well. Really very early, right? 1950s. I didn't even have internet until I was 17. So, well, that was quite late, to be fair. My mom was not really happy about. She didn't care about it much. But still, in Hungary, I think it was not happening until the millennium that people started having it in their homes as well. Okay, 1961 was the real tipping point for the United States of America. It was like the computer network prototype that was born, and humanity entered space age. And the expression information society was born in the United States of America, which became an information society then, 1950s, 60s. Yeah, 61 was like the very official age. Now, right after, Japan was coming on, 1960s to 65. I didn't know that Japan was so early. I mean, of course, we know that their robot technology is sky high and their inventions are really, really, really spectacular. But I didn't know they would be the second after the United States of America. I'm not sure if it's surprising to you as well. And then later on, other pioneering countries entered the information society in the 1970s, like other fast developing countries, like Asia's 4 Little Tigers. I'm not sure. Yeah, that's Singapore and, oh God, and another 3 countries. Hong Kong and another 2. Please help me. Taiwan? Is it? Okay, we will check it out. I'm sorry about it. But the 4 Little Tigers, they were also coming on. Please help me out in here. Yeah, something like those. I'm very much assuming. Please excuse me. Countries like Hungary, they were coming along in the millennium, as I have mentioned. We became an information society in the 2000s. But I do remember this, and I'm not sure if in your country it was the same, but in our homes, because my parents are teachers, we didn't really bother with the internet when I was a child. It was just not, they didn't need it much at all. We didn't even have a computer, only for games, that we were using it. And so in many homes where people were using it, people had like a separate room, which they called like a studio, or what was also like a working kind of little studio, because the computer had its own room, in Hungary at least, in many, many households, and people were going into this separate home to use the PC separate room to use this PC as well. It's no longer happening, of course. We've got laptops, smartphones, everything, and we are using the internet everywhere in the flat, of course, or in the apartment. But still, this is how it started in Hungary in the millennium, and in many second world countries it was around the millennium that they entered this information society age. A great part of Africa, Asia, Latin America, so the third world countries, they cannot be regarded as information societies still. As I have mentioned, they do have very many other more important issues to face, and the internet and new media is not a priority compared to drinking water, of course, and supplies. Okay, now there is, in the information age, actually, there is a huge need for the more developed or the most developed countries to balance out the other countries. And so they're trying their best to bring new media and internet and networks and information into these developing places as well. So the first world countries are really motivated to bring their supplies to the third world countries. Now, why is this happening? Why do you think, because it's not happening just by charity, I don't think you're surprised if I say that, why do you think it is happening that the first world countries are so, they're not doing that by being good-hearted, they're so motivated to bring the third world countries up and to have information brought there and have them also have their information networks and internet networks? Why can it be in the interest of societies? And I promise you it's not going to be a selfless kind of deed that they are bringing their supplies there into third world countries. I'm curious about your opinions. Yeah, the issue of the global information society wants to reflect on many, many things, such as the international communication, which is needed, and they are trying to get everybody involved in this. International organizations, so that these organizations do have some sort of a branch everywhere in the world. Having supranational control, this is also a very important factor in this one, that if we don't see what those countries are doing, we're not controlling them. So bringing our supplies there, we can control a full area as well. And I'm not sure if you see it or if you agree with me, but this might be a new way of colonization, isn't it? Because it's not like I'm going there and now I'm killing everybody off and taking their land. But I'm bringing everything there in order to constantly survey them, or surveillance is a thing, like constantly observe them and see them and watch them. So practically I think that's also a very important factor in this one. Migration processes and multiculturalism, global knowledge management, extraterrestrial processes and environmental problems, these are also issues that are part of this global information societies, and they're also motivated for many reasons in order to bring the third world countries up on their own levels, even though they're very slow in the catching up in this story as well. Yeah. Now, the security of the information society is not very high, as we can see, because now we are being watched everywhere. And even if I just always stick down my camera, for example, on my laptop, but I never do it on my smartphone, which is rather silly of me, isn't it? Because no matter how much I'm hiding from my laptop, I'm using my smartphone more. Defenseless against technology. This is also an issue in the information society. We are defenseless. Technology needs to be used every single day. Cookies are watching us every single day. We are a very vulnerable society. We're even more vulnerable in a way. We feel that we live in a democracy and freedom, but indeed, we are more vulnerable than any society ever, because now everybody in this world, not only, let's say, in an oppression or in a communist period, for example, like in Hungary, we were watched by the government. Now we are watched by everybody else, We are watched by American FBI or something, because I don't really think that we are watched because we're not that interesting, but we could be watched if they wanted to, which is crazy. Private data preservation. Our data is being used. You have mentioned it as well, that even if you're not using your Instagram, it is collecting data of you. preservation of overall human knowledge, which is a good thing, by the way, because the whole thing is preserved and human knowledge is not getting lost because, oops, sorry, I'm kicking the table. We do have a bunch of information that never got found throughout history. So in this way, preservation is easy and fun and very smooth. And also humanly induced civilizational threats, for example, war, terrorism, and stuff like that. If you heard it, this new society was very much supporting very many attacks. For example, the 2015 Bataclan attacks as well, they're set to be using all kinds of means of new media, of course social networks as well and social media platforms as well, but they also say that games as well, or like these PS4 and or PSP or something like that, and all these Nintendo and stuff like that, they were also being used in order to be keeping in connection with the members of ISIS. So they say that a bunch of things were used. We may never know if it's true or false, but at least that's what they say, that a bunch of new media devices were being used in terrorist attacks as well and in wars as well. Nowadays, information is going to be one of the biggest capitals and more important than a rifle, or a rifle itself is going to be information. Okay, so we have entered an electronic Orwellian world. We know it, we have mentioned it. Excellent. Good. So the post-information society, because we are living this period actually now, deals with questions that are biotechnological. So right now, robotization is going on. You might have noticed it. We keep mentioning a few issues like Metro Line 4 doesn't have a driver anymore. The robot in wherever you go, for example, in Japan, I did have a very kind student of mine, and she went out on Erasmus to Japan, and she was saying that in very many cases, these are these robot policemen helping people cross the zebra crossing, robots, waiters and waitresses in places, very initial kind of, phases that they're in at the moment, but still they're on and they're there. Sexual robots as well, I will teach you about them next semester in virtual communication, that sex robots are entering the market like never before. The generation of artificial intelligence, yes, we are leading into that direction, and I'm curious what you can name as a device of artificial intelligence. It's going to be a lot of things. Siri, for example, Alexa, for example, they're all listening to us, by the way, as it turned out as well. Google Translate working on the basis of artificial intelligence right now, and it has come a long way. I'm not sure if you've noticed. Hungarian was one of the languages which was it was very difficult to translate, because Hungarian is not very much like any other language. It doesn't belong to any big language families like the Slavic languages or the German languages or this and that. It's not. So it was very difficult. Google Translate was really, really horrible at the beginning, and now it's very good compared to what it used to be like. It still needs to come a long way, but it's very good. Artificial intelligence is there in translation programs, of course. And they also say that there is a functional merger of man and machine. Okay. Yeah, I've been talking about it for ages. Boring. Okay, how many types of media? That was all about what I wanted to say about the history of the information societies, ladies and gents. And now let's go a little bit into media conceptualization and what the media actually is, how many types we have got. Let's check this out. So, how many types do we have? We've got the printed media, that's number one, which, printing was coming along in, we mentioned this in media communication in 1455 with the Gutenberg Galaxy, and that was number one. Then we've got the traditional electronic media, which is going to be television and the radio. And then last but not least, we will have the new media, of course. That's the internet and anything that's related to it. So podcasts as well, going to be new media. Give me some more, please, that you think is new media. Okay, so social media is also new media, of course. A bunch of things. Okay. What happens? We mentioned this, that the print media was requiring competencies. We mentioned that in media communication. Skills. You needed to read, you needed to write, you needed to understand. It was an active procedure. Let's not waste much more time on it. Traditional electronic media. Optimally, we can see and hear. So we can all sit down course, in a healthy situation. We can all sit down on a couch, watch our TV, and then it's all good. No competence is needed. Easy reception, but easily forgotten kind of information can be observed as well. You acquire the information, but because you didn't read it, you didn't think about it, you didn't observe it, it's not super, like, it's just, television media is just shocking rather than deeply elaborated on. New media. This one needs competencies once again, and it's like a double-sided competence that they want from us. It's a technological competence, and it's another type of cultural competence that you need in order not to share fake news or inappropriate stances or stupid things on Facebook, for example. We all shared all these things as well, and I'm thinking what you think when you look back on your media consumption like 10 years ago. I deleted a bunch of things from my Facebook from 2007 when I entered, but still it needs a good clear out because it's not in the state that I want it to be, of course. Good. Now there were 3 stages of media, very important in history. Web 1.0. I'm not sure if you have heard of these ones before, but this is important. Web 1.0, this was the history of new media practically. Web 1.0 was the era of online presence, the first time when people went onto the internet, when the internet became of civilian use. Now this one was like this showing face kind of a period rather than anything else, and it was not for the person. So it was not personalized, it was not for average people, it was rather for companies. So the Web 1.0 period, that was rather like the 1990s here in Hungary, and I'm wondering what it was, or late 1990s. I'm wondering what you think about it, or early 2000s, about your country, because it was just like a company put up a web page, they set a web page, which was really brochure-like, it was rarely updated, it was never refreshed really. In the bottom, they added that, like, call this telephone number or send a fax. I'm not sure if you've had that as well. So it was just like very brochure-like. You didn't have an interaction going on in web pages at the beginning. They were very, very, very monotonous and not very like fancy. Because nowadays a web page needs to be really easy usage and high profile and pretty and good looking and stuff like that. The feedback also needs to be provided. This one didn't have it. Email or phone or fax, that was all that you could do. Web 2.0. Now this is the current period. This is the social media period, right? This is the period that we are living in at the moment, which is rather the user-generated content and collective intelligence and participatory culture period. These expressions come from Henry Jenkins. He says that it is the user-generated content period because it's us generating the content. We upload things onto the Instagram, onto Facebook, onto any other social media platform. We create videos and images as we go, and then we send it in, and somehow it goes viral, and the real news portals use it. I have mentioned it before, I think, that news media actually uses 30% of the information which is going to be user-generated content. So it's not generated by news reporters and other people, it's generated by us, you and me. Okay, collective intelligence. We live in the period of collective intelligence when we actually commonly edit things, comment on things as well commonly. We edit Wikipedia, for example, commonly. We edit the whole world of social media together, which is like a common way of collective intelligence. Participatory culture. This is very, very important. So we participate in creating culture. We are all responsible in this creation as well. What do those people do who are detoxing? What do you think happens? How do we think about those people who say that it was enough and I'm not going to post anything else, or I'm going to deactivate my profile? Have you ever done that? How do you feel? Is this participatory culture really a selfless and voluntary participation, or do we have to participate? What happens to you if you don't have a Facebook page. It's interesting, I do have some Turkish ladies and gents in the third year media course, and they were saying it was really weird. They don't use Facebook much at home in Turkey anymore. They use Twitter and Instagram and TikTok, of course, but Facebook has gone out of fashion there. That's what they mentioned, at least. It was a must for them to get back into it now here in Hungary, because we use it a bunch. Our university things are posted onto Facebook, and they can only get in connection with their student kind of fellows or fellow students, really, in Messenger as well. So I'm wondering what you think. Is this participatory culture voluntary, or do we have to participate because we will fall behind, or what is happening? Have you ever had it that you've had enough and you said that you would be detoxing? How was it? How long could you do that? I'm very curious about these things as well. Okay, community action are in the focus in here. Good. And then Web 3.0, that's going to be the currently forming phenomenon. So there are also several ideas about it and several names about it: the semantic web, sensory or sentient web that they call it, social web, or perhaps mobile web, that's what they're calling it. This is going to be any form of virtual reality and augmented reality. We mentioned the difference between virtual and augmented reality before. We mentioned that augmented reality, such as Pokemon, for example, is a real reality with something non-real mixed with it. So I'm going in the real park, in the real streets to catch Pikachu, but Pikachu is not real. I'm sorry to say that. I hope that it's not news to you. Virtual reality, that one is completely fictional. Okay, so it's just you get into a virtual reality game, for example, and the whole setup is unreal as well. It's not real. Okay, so that's the only difference. And this is currently forming. So and robotization is kind of belonging here as well. This is what is happening at the moment, Web 3.0. What do we expect? What is going to happen? How do you think this will affect our knowledge, our behaviors, that we will live in an augmented and virtual reality very soon? Are you happy? Are you scared? Is there something you think? Do you think that it's really so close? Google Glasses were coming along and they were a fail. They didn't get super big. I remember in one conference, there was this one American professor who brought Google Glasses with him, saying that in America they have just launched it. I think it was a good 5 years ago or even more. And I checked it and it was very good, but it was a feeling that I could live my life without it. Whereas without, social media and Web 2.0, I can't. So I'm not sure what you think about it and how you think of this currently forming period, when it's going to be fully formed, but it is coming as well. New media. How is it new? That's a new question as well. Why do we call it new media? Now, we call it a lot of alphas and Ys and multitaskers and net citizens and cyber era and a lot of digi-generations. We've got these huge names as well, And we can see that these are new and ever-changing elements of a culture. We live in big numbers and big data periods, and we live in the periods of small devices. We've got a very small device, for example, a phone. This is what we will call media convergence very soon. And I will teach you about it later, or very soon, really. And this one device is actually 10 different devices at the same time. A GPS, a photo camera, a laptop, a this, a that, everything at the same time. Small devices, large number, huge data. We no longer have to conquer time and space because we have done that. We are living in this period. We have to conquer attention. We keep mentioning this as well, which is an economic advantage. If I pay attention to you and not to another YouTuber or another influencer or another whomever, we have reached to the very active and wise messes period, and everybody is putting these wise in an ironic kind of sense, really. Why do we live in the period of wise messes? What does it mean? And why are people so sarcastic about it nowadays? half of the world is watching the same YouTube video and music. We do have access to the same music, the same jeans from Levi's or something. We do have the same things everywhere. Why is globalization good? Why is this new thing good? And why, new media good? And why is it bad? How come it is going to be maybe dangerous for us? Well, I'm talking about this new media period right now. More than 60,000 images are being uploaded onto photo sharing websites such as Instagram. 60,000 images just in this very moment that I'm talking to you. 80 million tweets are shared on social media sites. It's crazy. We are living in the period of big numbers. Many hundreds and thousands invest into the next generation model of smartphone. We have to. You notice it, that they're always kind of giving you options for software refreshment and stuff like that, because they're just making your phones slower and slower and slower, so that you invest into a new one every 2 years or 3 years. I'm not sure how often you invest into it. My phone, for example, this is 6 years old and still would work really well if they didn't put on all the software, all that jazz, because it's just getting slower now, but it would still be fine. But now I'm craving a new one because it doesn't know all the functions that I would like it to know. So they're making us crave more and more and more all the time. Sensational initiatives start, for example, the Global Pulse, Big Data, or the Earthquake Detector as well, and these global movements are all going on, which is crazy. So today's new media is a deceptively infinite space, very, very much infinite as well, which doesn't have a length, rather a depth to it. It's large. It offers the possibility for data sharing, developed reality as well, uninterrupted, personalized, interactive. This is very important. Uninterrupted because we are constantly on it. We cannot get rid of it for a moment. Personalized because all the advertisements are there for us, personalized according to our interests. Our websites, everything is going to be offered to us according to our taste as well. And it's interactive because we are constantly being asked, monitored, and everything is monitored, not even just the clicks, but the speed by which you are rolling. We have mentioned this. Everything is monitored. Your eye movement is also monitored through your lenses as well, through your cameras, saying that like where your eyes are kind of staying longer. So how is it new? What does new media mean? New means also like it's novelty, or it's not like the old one. New is an indicator of something that goes beyond temporality, and it indicates some sort of a distinction from the old. How is new media new, ladies and gents? This is the main question right now. New media is going to be new. Let's have a look at the differences. Good, this is what I'm searching for. New textual experiences, very importantly. New genres. News writing at the moment is not like it used to be. How is news media different, ladies and gents? What do you think? How are the news now? We have mentioned that there is a large photo and very little text because ain't nobody got time for reading at the moment. How is the textuality? What genres have come along? How do you think that's different? Because it's very, very different. New representations of ourselves, very much. If I ask you how you actually represent yourself online, what would you say? Well, how is your representation? What are you trying to convey as an information about yourself? Because majority of times it's going to be beauty, wealth, health, a lot of things that we are trying to convey, even when we don't have that. We are not always healthy, and we are not always wealthy. It's happening. It's life, it's natural. Individuals, users and consumers, we are constantly, this is new as well, that we are media content receivers and generators at the same time. We are like users and givers. It's very important that this has changed. Embodiment. Our body, time and space and everything changes, and our body, it's not always us behind the computer. Okay, so I can just be commenting on something and embodiment is different. Nobody will ever know that it's me. Or maybe I'm a 50-year-old man with a huge beer belly, commenting on little girls' websites and stuff like that, or web pages. it's like embodiment. The body itself, the physicality of the person is different. This is how we mentioned like cyberbullying is possible because we are faceless. We can just keep commenting online and nobody will ever have a problem with that because we cannot be found. Yeah, biological body we have mentioned. New patterns of production and organization. Very importantly, there are new patterns of production and receiving information as well. It's constant. The media culture, the media industry is kind of settled for constant usage and for constant control, constant access, control over like our integration as well into the usage. And we're constantly being watched as well, which is also belonging here in my opinion. Human attention. Now, this is a new thing, and this is what describes new media as well. A new kind of attention is here, very short span, and it needs to be used very, very smartly because we will just lose interest in a second. And new literacy, new intellectuality skills as well, because our knowledge at the moment is really different. We do have all our knowledge exported, or majority of it exported. There's a new literacy, and I'm wondering what you think about this, how our literacy is practically brand new compared to our mums and dads and grandparents as well. That's where we are stopping. Big data is for next week. Thank you so much for your attention. Let's just jump right into Teams, and we're continuing thinking about these issues together. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.